Welcome to the Parsha Perspective. Each week, we will delve deep in a weekly Torah portion to find a practical and insightful way to enhance your daily life. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Rabbi Shalom Yamini, and each week we will look into the weekly Torah portion to find practical and insightful ways to enhance your daily life. This week's Parsha Perspective is in honor of our homeland, Eretz Yisroel. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu, may God continue to protect our brave soldiers, and may God comfort all those who are grieving and give healing to our nation. This week's Parsha Perspective is in loving memory of my grandmothers, Gittel Bas Asher and Shoshana Bas Shalom, as well as my aunt, Chana Bas Rav Yehuda, along with Edward ben Ephraim, Shlomo ben Edward, and Yerachmiel Daniel ben Gedalia. May their souls be uplifted and may their memories be a blessing. This week's Torah portion is Parshas Vayigash, carrying light forward. Our Parsha begins with Yehuda stepping forward to plead with Yosef for Binyamin's release. In a desperate appeal, Yehuda offers himself as a slave in Binyamin's place, explaining that if they were to return home without him, their father Yaakov would not survive the heartbreak of losing another son. Overcome with emotion, Yosef could not hold and contain his secret any longer. He ordered everyone but his brothers to leave the room, and through tears, he reveals his true identity, declaring, "Ani Yosef, I am Yosef, your brother." His brothers stood frozen in silence, unable to comprehend that the powerful viceroy of Egypt was the same brother that they had sold into slavery so many years earlier. Sensing their fear and confusion, Yosef reassured his brothers, and he emphasized to them that it was not their actions alone, but God's plan that had brought him to Egypt. And it was done so in order to preserve life during the years of famine. They were year number 2 of 7 of the famine at the time. And he urged them to return home and bring their father Yaakov along with their families to Egypt, where he would care for them for the remaining years of hardship. And when the brothers came home with the news that Yosef was still alive, Yaakov was initially skeptical. And only upon seeing the wagons that Yosef sent did his spirit revive. The pasuk tells us, "Vatichi ruach Yaakov aviyam," and the spirit of their father was revived. Before returning to Egypt, God appears to Yaakov in a vision, and he reassures him, "I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will surely bring you up once after again." And comforted by this divine promise, Yaakov gathered his family, 70 souls in total, and journeyed to Egypt to reunite with his long-lost son, Yosef HaTzadik. However, a question comes to mind. After learning that Yosef was still alive, Yaakov prepared to journey to Egypt to be reunited with the son that he had mourned for 22 years. Yet before continuing on, the Torah tells us that he stopped in Be'er Sheva and offered sacrifices to God. Why did Yaakov stop? After decades of longing, of unresolved grief, why did he not rush immediately to embrace his son that he thought he had lost forever? Why pause even for a single night when every part of him must be pulling him forward? What uncertainty did Yaakov need to confront in Be'er Sheva before he could take the final steps towards Yosef in Egypt? The Radak, Rav David Kimchi, one of the great commentaries of the early Middle Ages, gives a simple explanation. And his commentary is known for its clarity and for explaining the straightforward meaning of each verse, each pasuk, often revealing the emotional reality beneath the words. And he writes that Yaakov did not stop in Be'er Sheva out of hesitation or delay, but out of reverence and caution. Yaakov was about to leave Eretz Yisroel and to descend to Egypt, a land that would soon become the place of exile for his family. And before taking that step, he needed clarity, he needed reassurance, and that this journey was truly sanctioned by God himself. The Radak explains that Yaakov was unsure whether he was permitted to leave the Holy Land of Israel. His father Yitzchak had been explicitly forbidden from descending to Egypt, and Yaakov feared that that same restriction might apply to him. Be'er Sheva was a place of prayer and sacrifice and giving karbanis for his father Yitzchak, a place where Yitzchak davened and received divine guidance at moments of uncertainty. And Yaakov stopped there to offer karbanis and to inquire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, seeking confirmation that this path, as painful as it was, aligned with the divine will of God himself. However, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem and Lushneerson, gives us a deeper and more profound explanation. And he writes that Yaakov understood that he was not simply traveling to Egypt to be reunited with his son, but he was standing at a threshold of an historical turning point that would define Jewish existence for generations. According to the Rebbe, Egypt was not just a place of refuge from famine. It was the beginning of exile. And Yaakov sensed that while Egypt would offer safety, stability, and material security, it would also introduce spiritual concealment and gradual disconnection from clarity and purpose. And before entering such a reality, Yaakov needed to fortify himself inward, anchoring his faith, anchoring his connection to God before stepping into an environment where the divine presence would be harder to perceive. And when he stopped in Be'er Sheva, it was not random. It's a place deeply bound to the spiritual foundations of his father and his grandfather. Avraham proclaimed the name of God, and Yitzchak turned to God in moments of uncertainty. The Rebbe explains that Yaakov returned there to draw from the strength and the roots of his lineage, reconnecting to the spiritual inheritance that would be necessary to sustain his descendants through the exile. And it is in this space of spiritual grounding that God appears to Yaakov Avinu. And he reassures him, and he reassures us, that although the journey was not only permitted, but purposeful. And when God says, I will go down with you to Egypt, he's reassuring that Yaakov and the Jewish nation throughout eternity, that the divine presence would accompany the Jewish people even in exile. And when he added, I will surely bring you up from exile and out towards redemption, he revealed that the exile itself contained promises of redemption. That descent was part of the unfolding divine plan, rather, heaven forbid, than a deviation from it. And only after receiving such reassurance did Yaakov continue on his journey. His pause was not a delay, but foresight. He ensured that before entering a period of concealment, his connection to God for himself and his family and generations to come was strengthened, and his mission was clarified. And in doing so, he prepared himself, he prepared his family, he prepared us to carry the light into places that light would not be easily seen. And this lesson is ever more relevant in the wake of the tragic massacre at Bondi Beach, where Jews were murdered simply for living openly as Jews on the first night of Hanukkah. And the myth that exile can be navigated comfortably has been collapsing for a long time. From October 7th and onward, with each new attack stripping away another layer of false security. Like Yaakov standing at the threshold of Egypt, we are reminded that the gullus, that exile demands awareness, that it demands preparation, not denial or complacency. The light we carry must be protected. It must be strengthened and lived with intention, especially when the darkness keeps insisting that it is still there. In our daily life, it is imperative to understand that progress is not only about moving quickly forward. Sometimes pausing allows us to confirm that our direction is aligned with our goals and our values. Even when we feel eager to reach a long-awaited goal, a long-awaited outcome, the reflection that we can give ourselves strengthens the purpose that we have rather than delaying success. And when the action is guided by clarity and by intention, we move with confidence instead of doubt. And this approach allows us to accomplish our goals, to pursue our dreams, and to finally succeed beyond what we once thought was possible. There's a profound quote that I once read. Hope is not optimism. It is the belief that meaning exists, even when the road is dark. Have a great weekend and good Shabbos. Thank you for tuning in to the Parsha Perspective. Check out our website, theparshaperspective.com. Send thoughts and comments to theparshaperspective@gmail.com. Till next time, thanks for listening.